Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
Ulo, matalag mo.
Be in a proper place with less noise. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text, speak, and slang. Example, lol or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text, speak, and slang. Example, lol or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. And enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, lol or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, lol or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, doll or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, doll or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, doll or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum, as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, doll or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar. Here are the rules and reminders before and during the webinar. Make sure everything works before the session begins. Give yourself time before the session starts to do this. Treat all participants with respect. If you would not say something to someone's face, do not say it to them when online. Be careful when using humor or sarcasm, as it can easily give offense, especially when you cannot see facial expressions. All communication should be academic in nature and include correct spelling and grammar and reference where appropriate. Keep caps lock to use the minimum as it can make you look like you are shouting. Avoid text speak and slang. Example, lol or besties. Only use emoticons when appropriate. Some users can find them really annoying. Remove distractions. Be in a proper place with less noise and good lighting. Pay attention and participate actively. Stay focused. Listen attentively and participate if needed. Thank you and enjoy the rest of the webinar.
So ayan, magandang RMMC. Syempre, RMMC. And I hope that we are all comfortable staying maybe at our rooms or maybe at malls or the others maybe at beaches here in the region. So while we are having this kind of activity, kasi nga, di ba, napaka-importante ng activity na to na matututunan natin ngayon. By the way, this activity is themed Materializing Impactful Learning Outcome, a Vision of Lesson Planning. So, ayun. So, sa ano pa lang, sa theme pa lang, malalaman natin kung ano yung goal natin ngayon, which is on how are we going to create a very good lesson plan. So, with the help of our speaker later, na i-introduce sa atin mamaya, I guess is marami talaga tayong matututunan. So, wag na natin itong patagalin. And by the way, ako nga pala ang inyong host. I am Leo G. Dublas, a DPEd student of Ramon Magsaysay Memorial College's Gensan. And to begin with our program, I request everyone to please close our eyes and let's put ourselves in the presence of the Lord with a prayer to be followed by our national anthem, the Lupang Hinirang, as well as the regional hymn, the Gensan hymn, and the RMMC hymn.
Amang nasa langit, papuri sa iyo.
ang kayang minamahal, ang isang kang matawat mo'y tagumpay na nagdidinig, ang bituin na tarang niyang kaya, ang may ibang didilig, lupa ng araw ng walay pasinta, buhay langit sa piling mo, ang iligaya namang may pag-aapi, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Hinubog mo kami mula sa kawalan, binigyan mo ng buhay at karangalan. Dati ay sinakop ka ng iba't ibang dayuhan, ngunit sa taglay mong lakas, hindi patatalo kanino man. Mga Muslim, mga Kristiyano at mga iba pang tribo, kami nagkakaisa sa pag-angat ng ngalan mo. Dugot namang iaalay, pumailan lang sa paggabay, patuloy kang bigyang puri, kami sa'yo'y nawiwili. Mabuhay ka, Reyong Dose. Malawak masagana ang iyong lupain, pati buong bansa'y umaasa sa iyong mahahain. Sa pagsikat ng araw, kay ganda ng iyong tanawin, pinagpala ng may kapal, mabuhay ka, Sok Sargent. Ako, ikaw, tayo, tungo sa kaunlaran, talino at lakas, ihahandog sa bayan. Mga Muslim, mga Kristiyano at mga iba pang tribo, kami nagkakaisa sa pag-angat ng ngalan mo. Dugot naman iaalay, pumailan lang sa paggabay, patuloy kang bigyang puri, kami sa'yo'y nawiwili. Mabuhay ka, Reyong Dose.
Ating pagdiwang ng buong galang si General Paulino Santos, kanyang talino, lakas at buhay, dito niya ibinuhos upang lahat ng naninirahan, panawin malay masisiyahan. Sa ating lungsod na kung tawagin ay General Santos City. Magaliw tayo sa liwasan ay magsaya, maraming tao mula pang nasa umaga sa botany. Mga bulong ay nakikita sa taas, kaya matutumang siya ng umulat dito sa Timog Cotabato. Taong ay inang at mga tanong ay dapat mamabukirin. Nalagyan ang puno niya at mga saging, ngayon lahat ay may ulawan. Kristiyano, Muslim, Tipuli at Laan, sa ating lungsod na kung tawagin ay General Santos City.
One and all RMMC forever. Don't just be, we will strive all together. For the truth and the right we'll stand and be of service to our land. All in one, dear RMMC always, the true haven of our hopes where you stays. Thy ideals be our guiding star. Thy good name will never mar. Onward march, never fail in its duty. Make a name for our school and our country.
Now, to give his words of welcome, let's extend our virtual cups to one of the passionate, optimistic, and amazing teachers in RMMC. Let's welcome Sir Cliff Corsit, MA.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the faculty and staff of the College of Teachers Education Program, headed by our Dean, Dr. Annalisa T. Amata. And to all of you practice teachers, good afternoon. Welcome to the challenging world of teaching career. During pandemic, it was a struggle to cope at first with the difference, especially to us future teachers. We are used to seeing our peers, our students, our classmates in person. Those interactions, according to one of the best theory of interaction, really helps a lot to cope with the system and to really learn a lot with our peers. But pandemic hinder us to do so. We have a sense of community with all the people that surrounds us, our family, our friends, our peers and workmates. It was a comforting feeling knowing that they're all there to give you support and love. During the pandemic, we discover more interests and discover things that we can do for ourselves. And by doing that, we tend to practice. But I just want you to know that in the teaching and learning career, practice doesn't make perfect anymore, especially in teaching fields in a new normal settings. We need not only mastery in one teaching strategy, but I just want you guys to be more flexible, creative, but not outdated in terms of strategy, methods, and techniques in teaching. Wala na pong perfect ngayon, but there is only best adaptation. Adapting in the call of the new normal settings and challenges. Alam nyo, nasusukat kasi ang galing ng tao dahil sa pamantayan at ipinapakita ng lipunan sa kanila. Sa mga sitwasyon kung saan tayo nakakulong. At sa mga resources lang na kung anong meron tayo. Itinatago tayo at ikinukulong sa paniniwala at panghuhusga na yun. Pero huwag mabahala. Kapag gusto mo, kumawala ka. Kumawala ka sa impresyon at standards na isiniset ng komunidad para sa iyo. I want you to be outrageous to change something from old to new. Dahan-dahan man dahil sa pandemya, bahala na basta umuusad ka. I want you to remember that do not waste your energy fighting the old, but spend your most precious time on building something new, something great that will change the world. That's the challenge of the 21st century teachers like you. Baguhin mo ang mundo, be a catalyst of change. And kung mababago man ang mundo, sumabay ka at i-enjoy mo. I wish you guys good luck on your teaching career, and this would be your baptism of fire in teaching world. Good luck and God bless you all.
Thank you so much, Sir Cliff. At this juncture, to introduce our speaker for today, let's hear from Ma'am Rosabel Malagamba, LPT.
A blessed morning to all of us. It is my great honor to introduce to you our highly esteemed resource speaker for this webinar series. He is an alumnus of this institution, graduated in the year 1992 with a degree in Bachelor of Elementary Education. He continued to elevate his endeavor and has become a board of director of Teacher Cooperative, a Boy Scout Wood Badger, and a board of director of the Philippine National Police Regional Battalion Advisory Council. Folks, our resource speaker was also a title holder, and in fact, he was once before the Mr. Dex, now DepEd 1995. Future teachers, our resource speaker is a total package of passion, hard work, and excellence. Help me welcome, with virtual applause, our esteemed resource speaker, Dr. Gregorio Ruales.
Thank you. My greetings to everyone and to our RMMC President, Sir Meliado, to the Vice President, Ma'am Rodriguez, Dr. Rodriguez, and to our Dean of Education, Dr. Amada. To the teachers and staff, maayong buntag kaniyong tanan sa malamig na umaga. And okay, wait a minute. Okay, so it's all about my task this morning is all about the planning instructions using the daily lesson plan. But beforehand, of course, it's a 5 good things to do in the morning. At least we have to smile 10 persons, mga katabi nyo dyan, and say thank you in a new language. And of course, you compliment someone, give high five practice, and state some 3 things proud of yourself. I hope that every morning it doesn't result a hectic and a tiring day, but having such a beautiful morning, and that is beyond amazing. Okay na ba? Okay, let's proceed. And I would like to share with you why God created teachers. God created teachers. He gave us special friends to help us understand His world and truly comprehend the beauty and the wonder of everything we see and become a better person with each discovery. When God created teachers, He gave us special guides to show us ways in which we to grow so we can all decide how to live and how to do what's right instead of wrong, to let us so we can lead and learn how to be strong. When God created teachers, and His wisdom and His grace was to help us learn to make our world a better and a wiser place. This time, I would like to share with you one of the pillars of education entitled Our Return on Investment by Miss Sabrina. Just wait. Okay, hindi ko ma-share. Let's proceed. No? It is all about the return of investment. Hindi ko siya ma-share. Sandali lang. Slideshow. Okay. Wait a minute. Let's share. Share. Okay. So let's proceed. You know, Okay, let's proceed. DepEd recognizes the importance of instructional planning to a successful teaching and learning in schools. Teacher as a facilitator of learning inside the classroom that play a vital role in ensuring the delivery of quality education. So our objectives at the end of this session, you should be able to justify the importance of lesson planning as fundamental to the delivery of teaching and learning in schools. Identify the similarities of and differences between a dated lesson plan and a daily lesson log. Explain the elements and parts of a daily lesson log and a dated lesson plan. Familiarize the relationship of the curriculum guide, the teacher's guide, and the learner's manual. Interpret and align the code book legend of the learning competencies in the CG, which is the curriculum guide, with the budgeted school calendar, and align the code book legend of the learning competencies with school calendar. Okay, the CG, the LM, and the TG. The CG is a curriculum guide, which is the learning standards. B, the learner's materials, which is the structure and pedagogical implications, which is the phases. And C, the teaching guide, which is the structure and assessment plan, or tinatawag nating elements. In the curriculum guide, we have that learning standards. And what is curriculum? As far as we know, that curriculum, according to Robert Gagni, it really defined that curriculum is a sequence of content units arranged in such a way that the learning of each unit may be accomplished as a single act, provided capabilities described by specified prior units have already been mastered by the learners. And that's why we have our curriculum guide, the standards, the content standard, the performance standard, and the assessment standard. When we say the content standards, it is the key concepts in the content standard. It indicates the topics, the learning episodes, and lessons that the students must be able to understand. What about the skills? When we say skills, it is the performance standards or the products and performance that the students must be able to do and produce in relation to the content standard. And the other one, on assessment criteria. The adverb or adjectives in the performance standards determine the assessment criteria or components from which the rubric must be crafted. Example, the proficiency, creatively, effectively, actively, powerful, and sure. As made mention about phases, it's all about what to know, what to process, in the learning materials and what to reflect on and standard and what to transfer. While the teaching guide, it is the structure and assessment plan wherein the elements, it's all about the learning outcomes, the planning for assessment, and the planning for teaching and learning. Ito po ang makikita natin sa the content standard. The content standard and the performance standard. For example, is the grade 10 first year, wherein the content standard is all about to demonstrate the understanding of key concepts of sequences, polynomials, and polynomial equations. And the performance standards is all about is able to formulate and solve problems involving sequences, polynomials, and polynomial equations in different disciplines through appropriate and accurate representations. And what about the learning competencies and code? So in the Department of Education, so we have that content standard, performance standard, the learning competency, and the code. The learning competencies there, example for the learners, generate patterns, illustrate arithmetic sequence, and so on and so forth. So therefore, it is a statement of knowledge. It is the statement of process skills and attitudes that the students are expected to demonstrate to attain the content standard. Ito palagi natin sinasabi, it's all about the K-SAL, the knowledge, the skills, the attitudes, and values which the students will perform. And what about this code? For example, in the code book legend, may tayong sample dito. The first entry is all about mathematics, where in the strand is mathematics, there's a subject, and the grade level is 10, and the content or the strand, the topic is all about algebra. If you see the code, it's M10, and the topic is algebra, or the content, the domain content is all about algebra. It is, the code is AL. Then, since it is the first quarter, it is the Roman numeral, first quarter 1. And the first quarter and the fourth week, so the lowercase letters hyphenated between the letters to indicate more than a specific week, it is letter D. And the Arabic number, which is the competency of the second competency for the fourth week, and that is differentiates a geometric sequence from arithmetic sequence, that is 2. That's why M 1 0 al, or this algebra, hyphen then ID dash 2. And that is the code for a book legend. All disciplines ay mayroon po tayong code. So ito na po. Ito na pong code M10 al, then first quarter D and 2. Now, what about the parts of the LMs and TG, or the learning materials and the teacher's guide? For the learner's materials and the teacher's guide, it is the learning outcome Letter A, it is the learning outcome. Under the learning outcome is the content standard and the performance standard. I'm very sure it was explained, no, during your professional education. And letter B, it is the planning for assessment, which is the product and assessment map. It's either the pre-assessment, the formative, and the summative, including the assessment matrix for the summative test. Okay. And the other one is the planning for teaching learning, which is the introduction, the objectives, which is in the learner's materials. It's between the learner materials and the teacher's guide. Having a big picture of what is expected to be learned and clear directions and purpose of the module. It's between the introduction in the certain learner's materials and the teacher's guide. And what about the objectives? The objectives define the enabling knowledge and skills to develop the desired competencies leading to the attainment of CS and PS. The learner's materials and the teacher's guide. Ito po, ang pre-assessment na sinasabi natin kanina. At may sa teacher's guide ay mayroon namang pre-assessment, which is nandoon yung answers key. Then the learning goal and targets of the learning materials and the teacher's guide. Ito po yung the instructional activities ng learner's materials. And of course, nandyan din sa teacher's guide. So as what I've said before, it is to employ the paper and pencil test for the pre-assessment to check the knowledge, skills, and understanding, and to activate the prior knowledge of the learners, elicit responses of the provocative and critical questions, identifications and classifications, the misconceptions, and assessment of students' knowledge. In the learner's materials, after to know is what to process and what to reflect and understand. To process is to activate the requiring student to process and make sense of information, assess the student's skills, and questions that enable the students to construct their own meaning and understanding or understanding. And what to reflect and understand is that an additional activities and reading resources to enrich their understanding, and to provocative or critical questions that draw the learner's core understanding, and to check the student's readiness. Yun po ang mga parts ng ating learner's materials and teacher's guide. What to transfer? Ano bang ita-transfer? No? So, the overview of what is expected from the objective. No? An opportunity to transfer the learning through product and performance, and describe the tools for assessing the product and grasp with assessment criteria. And the summary or generalization is to provide a summary or synthesis of what has been learned from the lesson. Provide a linking and connecting statement of the lesson to the next lesson. Of course, we have that post-assessment, the glossary of terms and references and the website link used in the module in the learner's materials and in the TG or teacher's guide. So what is the connections among the curriculum framework, the concept framework, and the learner's materials and the teacher's guide? So to review the connections among the curriculum framework is the highlights of the relationship of the CS and the PS and the usage of the LMs and the TJ will greatly help in achieving them. To become a holistic Filipino learners. And so, what is instructional planning? Ano ba ang instructional planning para sa inyo? It is the process of determining what learning opportunities the students in school will have by planning the what? The content of instruction. Because here, the instructional planning includes not only the planning what the students will learn, but how they will learn it. Selecting and teaching materials, and designing and learning activities, and group methods, and pacing and allocation of instructional time. You know, in preparation for teaching and learning, it's including the constructions of goals, the constructions of objectives, the constructions of instructional and assessment methodology. Yeah. In the instructional process by Russian of 1994, the planning instruction, delivery of instruction, and assessment of learning. When we say planning instruction, this is wherein the teaching begins, even before a teacher steps in front of the class and begin a lesson. Teachers here are expected to organize and develop a plan for teaching. And what about the delivery of instruction? Sa delivery of instruction, to implement the plan for teaching, of course, you have to deliver. And assessment of learning is to be sure how effectively they implement a plan. So ganun na po ang cycle. No? It's a cycle. Instruction, the planning, the delivery, and the assessment. Okay. And there are importance why we have this assessment. And so, what is lesson planning? Para sa iyo, ano kaya ang lesson planning? Ano ito? is a one way of planning the instructions. Sometimes, no, sabihin natin the lesson planning, no, the objective of this is the objective of the lesson planning, of course, is all about learning. But you know, some teachers sometimes that they will say that they have been teaching the subject for many years and now they can teach even when their eyes are open. Kaya palagi na sinasabi, is it necessary for me to make my lesson plan? I can teach without it. Yan palaging naririnig natin, no, some of our colleagues. Lesson planning entails a prediction, anticipation, sequencing, and simplifying. And lesson planning is a critical part of the teaching and learning process. And lesson planning is a hallmark of effective teaching. And that is all about lesson planning. And what about you? How do you understand lesson planning? Ano bang lesson planning sa'yo? As far as the definitions is concerned. Well, it is also essential to successful teaching and learning. Others define it. It is also a vital steps in the instructional process and guarantee that teaching and learning are the central focus of classroom activity. In Article 4, Section 2, the Code of Ethics for Professional Teachers states that every teacher shall uphold the highest standards of quality education, shall make the best preparations for the career for teaching, and shall be at his best at all times in the practice of his profession. That's why lesson plan is very important. It helps the teachers set learning targets for learners. It helps the teachers guarantee that learners reach those targets. Or help the teachers see to it that daily activities inside the classroom led to learners' progress. And that's why planning lesson ahead of time means teachers enter the classroom each day fully prepared to teach new concepts and led a meaningful discussion to our learners. That's the reason, that's the importance of lesson planning. The other one is increases a teacher's chances of carrying out a lesson successfully. Yes, that's true. Kaya nga, mayroon akong isang dating guro, sabi niya, na I can teach without the lesson plan, but along the way, ay hindi naging successful kasi the proficiency level is 0%. The other one is allow the teachers to be more confident before starting a lesson. Yes, that's true. Iba talaga pag mayroon kang prepared lesson plan, rather than wala kang lesson plan, no? Nakakaroon ka ng nervous, no? Nagapangurog ka, especially pag mayroong bisita, no? I-check ka at wala kang lesson plan. And that is a mortal sin. And the other one is to inculcate the reflective practice on the part of the teachers and help the teachers master content of learning area. That is the importance of lesson planning. There are elements of lesson planning or lesson plan. Ano-ano yung mga elements na yon ng lesson plan? What should be taught? How should it be taught? And how should learning be assessed? Using the curriculum guide of teachers can plan many ways to teach. As I presented to you a while ago, that each lesson plan should have a learner-centered objectives. Take note, learner-centered objectives, because in the Key 12, no, in the RA 10533 is very clear. It should be learner-centered objectives that are aligned to the standards of curriculum. Teachers can also use many resources such as TGs, LMs from the LRMDS portal, the textbooks, and other references. But remember, all this should be used resources and not as curriculum. Well, with the lesson plan, teachers can predict which part of the lesson a learner will have a difficulty while you process, no, the instruction. No? You will know immediately kung saan ito. By this, the teacher can prepare strategies that could help the learners learn. Different strategies must consider to the learning styles, to the learning abilities, to the readiness and needs of the learners. And that is for Dan, the learning styles, and for the multiple intelligences, that is for Howard Gardner. Kasi nga, sabi nila, that the effective teacher do not only prepare a lesson plan, but also to prepare assessment plan or formative assessment plan. Kaya nga, kasali na rin doon, no, ang assessment. Kaya nga, it also refers to the form of assessment, which is in the depend order, no, that is, if I'm not mistaken, that is depend order number 8 of Series 2015. The policy guidelines in the classroom assessment for the K-12 basic education program. Kaya ito na, no, mayroon tayong form sa policy guidelines, ay makikita natin doon kung ano-ano yung mga guidelines for the assessment. Kaya planning lessons is fundamental to ensuring the delivery of teaching and learning in school. Okay. In planning the lesson, teachers can choose instructional models, instructional strategy, instructional method. And what is this instructional model all about? When we say model, it is a structure and delivery method of a lesson. For example, it's all about explicit teaching. When we say explicit teaching, is the model wherein the I do, we do, you do by Vygotsky. Other than that, we also have Bloom's taxonomy, the revised by Anderson. And we also have the model of Gagny, the 9 events of instruction. We also have this 5 E's. Ano itong 5 E's? Engage, explore, explain, extend, and evaluate. We also have this direct, indirect, independent, experiential, and interactive learning. That's why we have to think and choose according to the needs of the learners. What about instructional strategy? The instructional strategy are techniques teachers use to help the students become independent or strategic learners, o yung sinasabi nating a lifelong learning skills. And these strategies become learning wherein the students becomes independent and select and appropriate and use them effectively to accomplish the task or the goals. Other samples are sometimes some interactive instructions, some experiential learning or independent learning. Kaya sometimes tinuturo natin at dinidiscuss natin yung mga tinatawag nating peer teaching, project-based learning, ano pa ba? Reciprocal teaching, the jigsaw, the station, the inquiry-based learning, and the problem-based learning. What else? And the flipped classroom. Kaya nga, sometimes, bakit natin, why do teachers use instructional strategy? To allow the students to make meaningful connection between the concepts learned in class and a real life situation. Ito naman ang importante Kaya nga palaging sa one of the features ng K-12 ay dapat contextualize. It offers an opportunity for the learners to demonstrate their knowledge and course correct on their own when needed. And what about instructional method? Instructional method are, shall we say, are kinds of instructional ways or activities used to guide the facilitations of learning in its phase of instruction process. There are hundreds of variations example of this in the methods, the lectures, the case studies, the journals, the blogs, the storytelling, peer feedback, quizzes, performance, review, and so on and so forth. We see to it that instructional methods that are usually used by the teacher to create a learning environment. Kaya nga, mayroon tayong sinasabing direct instruction, interactive instruction, and independent study. So yun po ang ating in planning the lesson, the instructional model, the instructional strategy, and the instructional methods. Now, there are policy guidelines on daily lesson preparation for the K-12 basic education program. And we have that depth order number 42, series of 2016. Meant to support the teachers in upholding quality education standards by affirming the importance of instructional planning through a daily lesson log or a daily lesson plan preparation. So, I want you to go farther, and read and understand the policy in the depth order number 42, series of 2016. And to find out also there, the new lesson plan format, the sample lesson plan, and some of the concerns with regards to some policy about the DLL and DLP. Which format should I use? What format to use? And how do you find the new lesson plan format? Or are you using the same lesson plan or not? Ano ba itong DLL? Ano rin itong DLP? Magkaiba ba ito? Tingnan natin. DLL, teachers with at least 1 year of teaching experience, including the private school experience and higher education institution teaching experience. The teachers have been in the service for at least 1 year, provided they have available LMs and TGs. That is the daily lesson log. And what about the DLP? The daily lesson plan. Applicant teachers, and even master teachers who will conduct demonstration teaching shall be required to prepare a DLP, or the daily or detailed lesson plan. Newly hired teachers who earn a rating of VS or outstanding in the RPMS in a year shall no longer be required to prepare the DLP, or the detailed lesson plan. However, when new content is integrated into the curriculum, all teachers are required to write a detailed lesson plan for the content or the subject matter. So that is the difference between the DLL and the DLP. That answers to who are required to use the DLL and who are required to use the DLP. Teachers are allowed to work together in preparing the DLPs and DLLs. Seasoned or veterans teachers shall also mentor the new or the novice teachers in the preparations of the DLPs and the DLL. What is a daily lesson log? Ano ba ito? Daily lesson log. It is a template wherein the teachers used to log parts of their daily lesson. It covers a day's or a week's worth of lesson. It's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. It contains the following parts. Ano yung parts nito? Objectives, the content, the learning resources, the procedures, and the remarks and reflections. And what about the daily lesson plan? A teacher's roadmap for a lesson that contains a detailed description of the steps of teachers will take to learn a particular topic. The contents of the following parts: the objectives, the content, the learning resources, the procedures, the remarks, and the reflections. It's almost the same. Between the plan and the log. Now, how to write on each part of the daily lesson log. The daily lesson log and the daily lesson plan, na magkaiba lang is ang log is you just log every day of what parts na hindi mo na-discuss, while the plan is every day you have to create or produce a plan. Okay, let's discuss this. So the first part, as we discussed a while ago, is all about the content standard. It's all about to know and understand, answers what the students to know and be able to understand in the content standard. Then the performance standard, to perform and demonstrate, including the 21st century skills. As we discussed, what is this 21st century skills that expected among our learners and even the teachers. Then the learning competencies or the objectives with the learning code for each competency. The statement, specific statement of knowledge or process skills or attitude that the students are expected to demonstrate in a lesson in this part of competency codes are also lagged. So we have prepared from content standard, performance standards, and learning competencies. A matter of review, about some areas to consider when planning of instruction. It's all about the characteristics and the materials or resources that a teacher and a student to consider, the prior knowledge, the skills, and the habits. In the formulation of the objectives, so we have that global objectives, educational objectives, and instructional objectives, which these objectives in the three domains, na siyang the cognitive domain, the affective domain, and the psychomotor domain that was already explained to us of what is this all about, about the cognitive, affective, and the psycho domain. And then in the cognitive domain, of course, in the Bloom's taxonomy, palagi nating tinitingnan the knowledge comprehension application that is for yung kang Bloom's, While kay Anderson is all about the creating, no? The evaluating, synthesizing, analyzing. Ang kay Bloom's taxonomy. Bakit tayo nagkakaroon ng objectives? Of course, to describe the student's learning. Of course, to have a clear answers from the objectives. To represent the importance of the lesson. And that the objective na parang dapat natin gawin is always that verb that specifies students' performance. Palagi tayo dito nagkakamali, no? The objectives that contain the processes that required to show the learning, and the objectives that can be fulfilled in a reasonable amount of time. Okay. So, as we continue in the content, sa content na po tayo after the objectives. The topics or subject matters pertains to the particular content that the lesson focuses on. Ano yung specific nga? At ano yung mga references mo sa learning resources? It is the part of the DLL to ask the teachers to log the references and other learning resources. Anong pages ng TG, ng LMs, ng textbooks, and other additional references, or it is from the LRMDS portal. Learning resources refers to the materials that those that are teachers made or authentic, and others not included in the reference. This part of the DLL can also be include the supplies, equipments, tools, and other non-print materials needed of the activities before, during, and after the lesson. Take note, print and non-print materials needed in the activities before, during, and after. Okay. Ano-ano ba yung mga possible na mga materials? The visual aids na hindi natin pwedeng makalimutan that requires electricity to use. The non-projected visual. Ano yun siya? Of course, we have that chalkboard, we have that multi-purpose board, we have that display board, and we have that graphic materials. Then we also have still pictures. We have that maps and globes. We have that Velia. We have that models and mock-ups. We have that diorama. That this refers to a media format to which still images are enlarged and displayed on screen. The projected visual, kanina is non-visual. Overhead projector. I know we have that film strip. Since high-tech na tayo ngayon, we have our videos, our slides, different applications. Phonograph records, audio tapes, compact discs. Then what about multimedia presentation? That's why we have that multimedia kits. We have that, of course, we have also to consider the learning center. If we have this multimedia learning center, then we also have this interactive videos. And what are those films and videos? Of course, we have that film, we have that video, electronic distribution system, computer-based instruction materials. We also have that. na mga materials and resources that we have also to consider. Instructional games is also are activities which the participants followed. Instructional simulation and some books and duplicated materials. We also have that. Ano mga iyon? So ay mga textbooks, as I made mention, the resources materials, and the workbooks are those learning resources wherein that the teacher may consider in the planning the lesson before the delivery of instruction. Okay, the next one is the procedures. So in procedures, the letter A is reviewing the previous lesson or presenting the new lesson. This part, it connects the lessons with learners' prior knowledge. It also explicitly teaches the learners how to new lessons connects the previous lesson. It also reviews and presents the new lesson in the systematic matter. So kinakailangan before the lesson, we have to also to activate the prior knowledge and be sure that the problem is understood. And therefore, the teacher should establish a clear expectations. Review the previous lessons and have some motivational activity is part of the before the lesson. Review and also clarify some of the confusing concepts from the previous lesson. Kaya review of the previous lessons. Then, establishing the purpose of the lesson that will motivate the learners to learn the new lesson. And it encourages them to ask questions about the new topics and help establish reasons for learning the new lesson. So at this point, wherein the teacher also will create a certain questions, a critical questions among our students to clarify things and to encourage them. Okay. Then letter C is presenting examples, instances of the new instances of the content and competencies. This is also where the concepts are clarified. So this time, perhaps the teacher will convey that new information through modeling, demonstration, and so on and so forth, which it also involves processes that eventually the learners will internalize. And I think this time the teacher explains the models and illustrates the concepts, illustrate the ideas, the skills or processes that eventually the students will internalize. As what I've said, only 30% for the teacher and 70% for the learner. And there is a big no in the key to 12 for the spoon feeding. It should be a learner-centered rather than a teacher-centered. Okay. So the procedures, this part of the LL contains the parts, the 10 parts. Ito sinasabi ko, before the lesson, during the lesson, and after the lesson. Ito yan. Before, during, and after. In the key to 12, mayroon naman tayong tatlo, no? Before, during, and after. Okay. Sa pag-develop ng daily lesson plan. Kaya nga, during the lesson, no, there are aspects that we have also to consider, as what I've said a while ago, to choose a certain model of instructions. Kaya nga, kino-consider din natin yung sinasabi nating 4 A's. Sabi nating conveying that the teachers new information, so the teacher should also choose certain approach, no? So itong 4 A's, activity, yung tinatawag nating analysis and abstraction, and application, and so ganon, no? So ano itong activity, no? Activate prior knowledge, no? Activate learner schemas, and usually the activities during the activity are the gallery walk, brainstorming, concept mapping, games, question and answer using that critical questions. Those are under the activity. Then the analysis and abstraction, of course, you also acquire new knowledge and promote a higher order thinking skills in order that the learners make a connection between the content and his or her experiences. It is also an interconnection between the course material and the real life experiences, what I've said. So there are some methods of how we are going to process the analysis and abstraction using the active reading, viewing, note making, group discussion, journal, visual representation like role play, think, pair, and share, and so on and so forth. Then the other one is application. Ito yung mga application is that consolidate has been learned and make it relevant. Some processes is the learning logs, exit slips, sharing of products, debriefing on process, performance, simulation, case study, and so on and so forth. So those are some activities using that 4 A's approach in the delivery of instruction using that methods. Other than that, we also use explicit teaching. As I mentioned kanina about the explicit teaching. Explicit teaching naman ay it is a series of a clear statement or strategies that is effective to tested that give a high impact of the student learning. Kaya nga, sabi nga ni Archer and sabi ni Archer, it is the foundation, no, of a student-teacher interaction that occurs in a plan systematically. Why systematically? Because there is a demonstration, an explanation between the teacher and the students. Kaya nga, yung model na ito ay yung tatawag nating I do, we do, and you do. Ito yung tinatawag nating na modeling, guided practice, and independent practice. Sa modeling, ano ba mga teacher's behavior and learner's behavior? Dito sa teacher model, it is a performing skills that a new concept being taught. It is the tone of the lesson wherein the students have their pencils down while the teacher is showing them what to do. So nagmo-model siya, no? It's very clear and understandable, no? And these steps will also help the, shall we say, the students, no? who need really an extra time and process to understand the concept, considering that we also have learners who are very fast and slow and moderate. So the students here are just listening and watching the process of being modeled to them. Kaya nga, the learners here will just listen, observe, create example with the teachers showing. And what about the we do? No? So we do naman, the teachers are shall we say, the teachers models the correct way to understand guided practice. It's just to perform the new concept that being taught, and therefore the partner with the students and work through some examples. So it is the partner with the teachers or the classmates, and this will be allow the shall we say the deeper level of the learning to develop. The students here are able to do more than just to listen. They're able to allow the teachers to guide and encourage the students through the process of being taught without leaving them to a certain learning to the new materials. From here, the guided practice also will help the students build confidence to children with learning disabilities. Kasi nagtutulungan sila, especially those with mentally challenged individual, yung mga autism. No? Because after the model, the next is the guided practice, or the shall we say the modeling, then yeah, the guided practice wherein it also referred to a directed practice. No? So ang guided practice is also a directed practice, no? Wherein the students allow to succeed in achieving the desired learning objectives. Kaya sinabi ko kanina, it will also guide the students to motivate and build certain confidence to continue their learning. Kaya magkakaroon ng tinatawag nating group work activity or activities, which gives the students opportunity to circulate and confirm that all students have understood the lesson. Here, it also allowed the students the opportunity to task what were modeled, but ensure that they receive a feedback to their finished work or guide practice. Ito yung guided practice that we do. What about the you do? Sa you do naman, so ito yung mga teachers' behavior and the learners' behavior. No? It is wherein that students demonstrate the initial level of understanding of the new concept being taught through independent practice. The word independent. One, the subject area. Shall we say, this strategy works very well in mathematics. No? That often the math concepts involve a lot of steps and skills that need to be integrated and all at the same time. And sometimes you miss a crucial steps, no, of the new concept. It's so difficult pag mayroon kang ma-miss. No? In the independent practice, the students here new learning situations where they're able to understand and model and guide some of their colleagues or classmates. The learning also provides the students opportunity to test out their understanding in order to obtain the highest level of mastery as possible, and they understand, no, some of this learning. And therefore, the steps here is that they also identify students of how they able to support before they move on to another. Yan din ang napakaganda sa explicit instruction that perhaps isa sa mga titingnan natin para sa pag-deliver natin ng instructions. Now, in this type, habang di-deliver natin yung instruction using that 4A's and using that explicit, huwag din natin kalimutan na dapat ito ay differentiated. And what is this differentiated instruction? It is that enables teachers to plan strategically in order to reach the needs of the diverse learners in the classroom today. Then, ito yon, some key principles ng differentiated. Of course, let's teachers make the, what do you think? The difference. The other principles, the students, blank, what's the answer? In the learning preferences and need multiple and varied avenues of learning, of course, we have to differ. What about principle 3? Sa principle 3 naman, all students can what? Important for them to be learned. It's all about learn. All students can learn. And principle 4 is all about instruction must be meaningful. And principle 5 is all about the curriculum, instruction, and assessment are inseparable. So, ganun yan, no? So, even in the first slides up to the last slides, it is so inseparable, the curriculum, the instruction, and the assessment. And what about the principle 6? Diversity should be valued and respected. That I can do things that you cannot. And the principle 7 is all about flexibility. It's the hallmark of differentiated instruction. So doon na tayo, no? Ito na 'yon, no? Sa during the development of the lesson, that things that you have to consider. Next, let's proceed. After the lesson. Okay. After the lesson, closing or end of the lesson, which can be done through a wrap-up activities. We have to reinforce what the teacher has taught and assess whether the learners have mastered the day lessons or not. This is meant to reinforce what the teacher has taught and assess whether or not the learners master the day's lesson. This is all about after the lesson. Letter F, developing the mastery which leads to the third formative assessment can be done through more individual work activities such as writing, creative ways of presenting like dramatizing, and so on and so forth. The teacher shall ask learners to demonstrate their learning through accessible activities such as quizzes, worksheets, set works, and games. And there's also a policy of how we're able to conduct the certain assessment among our learners. Then, letter G, finding practical application of concepts and skills in daily living can develop appreciation and valuing for student learning by bridging the lesson, a daily living which also establishes a relevant in the lesson. Then, letter H, making generalization and abstractions about the lesson will conclude that the lesson, by asking learners good questions, will help them crystallize their learning so they can able to declare the knowledge and demonstrate their learning. And letter I, it is all about evaluating learning is a way of assessing the learners whether the learning objective has been met An evaluation should tap into the 3 types of objectives and letter J, additional activities or application or remediation. Dito naman sa remediation program and enrichment program, which is based on a formative assessment, will be provide the children with enrichment or remedial activities. Teacher should provide extra time for additional teaching activities that those learners demonstrating that they have difficulty with the lesson. Then, yeah, after the lesson, remember that flexibility is allowed in the delivery of the DLL procedures. Teachers do not need to go through all 10 parts in every lesson. So meron tayong 10 parts, no? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. No? The 10 parts should be done across the week. So within the week, in the DLL, yung 10 parts na yun. Teachers need to ensure that the procedures of the lesson led to the achievement of the stated objectives. Yun naman talagang purpose natin. That the formative assessment method to be used by the teacher should determine if the objective of the lessons are being met. Okay? So, yun naman talaga ang ating napaka-importanting tinitingnan. Okay. Now, here, we have the 3 marks in the DLL or the DLP, which a teacher shall indicate special cases, including but not limited to continuous lesson plan. Kasi sa DLL and DLP ay meron tayong mga remarks, no? It's either you have to transfer the lesson or any cases or the class suspension. Ano yung remarks? And then, aside from the remarks, we also have this reflection. So sa DLL and DLP ay meron tayong reflection. So ano yung reflection na ito? This part of the DLL requires the teachers to reflect on and assess their effectiveness. In this part of the DLL, the teacher should make notes of the number, no, of the learners who earn, no, 80% in the evaluation using that paper and pencil test, and the number of learners who require additional activities for remediation, and those who continue to require remediation. The effectiveness of the remedial lesson, the teaching strategies and the methods that work well, and why the difficulties teachers encountered that their principal or supervisor can help them solve. So, ganun yan. Na? So, integrated into a DLP are assessment methods used by the teacher to regularly check the understanding of the materials being tackled. Formative assessment of student learning must be done before, during, and after a lesson that will be required out to measure attainment of the lesson objectives. Ang assessment naman na formative assessment hindi lang sa at the end, no? It can be done also before and during through a series of activities. Now, providing assignment of homework is also a form of post-lesson formative assessment. Baka tinatanong ninyo, sir, paano ang assignment? No? Hindi man na-include doon sa part. Hindi dati-rati sa ginagawa namin na lesson plan ay mayroon talagang A, B, C, D hanggang sa assignment. It should be related to the day's lesson. Assignment should allow learners to master what was learned during the lesson or reinforce what has been taught. Teachers must check the assignments promptly. And we have that DepEd memorandum that in giving assignment is optional. It's very clear and should follow the provision of the DepEd memorandum number 329 series of 2010 entitled The Guidelines on Giving Homework or Assignment to All public elementary school pupils. Giving of assignment should also be optional in all grade levels. Okay? So in preparations of DLL and DLP shall be part of the performance assessment of those who are teacher 1. For those who are novice teacher. And of course, because we have that RPMS as part of our performance cycle. And teachers with exemplary DLL or DLP may be provided with incentives that the definition of rubrics for the DLL and DLP will be issued in a separate policy. Okay, so I would like you to watch this video.
Excuse po, sir. Wala pong audio, sir.
Walang audio. Paano
Opo.
ba ito? Nakali ka nga, nak. Shooters. Bing. Nandiyan na, wala pa rin.
Wala pa rin
Wala
po,
pa po
sir.
pa rin, sir. Upon sharing po, sir, click po natin yung share screen po, sir. Then, sa may lower left po ng screen, ng pop-up screen po, may share audio po din, sir.
Lower, push, share, and remote control. Bing, help Bing. Share sound dito. Share sound.
It is my pleasure
Yan,
to
meron
present
na.
to you the policy guidelines on the daily preparation for the K-12 Basic Education Program,
Meron ng
also
sound.
known as the DepEd Order 42 Series of 2016. The department ensures It is my pleasure to present to you the policy guidelines on the daily preparation for the K-12 Basic Education Program, also known as the DepEd Order 42 Series of 2016. The department ensures that the policy is comprehensive to address relevant issues and concerns raised by the educators, specifically teachers nationwide. The department strongly encourages that the stakeholders to thoroughly read the policy for their own advantage. This presentation will equip our supervisors, school heads, and teachers on how to fill out the template. But before I proceed, I would like to apprise everyone on the background on the process undertaken before the issuance of this policy. The policy was developed in accordance with DepEd Order 13 series of 2015 which aims to establish a policy development process that provides for systematic evidence-based and participatory mechanisms and procedures for the formulation, adoption, and review of policies issued by the DepEd Central Office. In fact, the Bureau of Learning Delivery, Teaching and Learning Division conducted a consultative meeting last May 2016 at the DepEd Central Office with 18 schools composed of multi-grade teachers, teachers from elementary and secondary level, ALS facilitators, school heads, and even representatives from the regional office. The policy was also presented to the Program Committee, which is spearheaded by the Office of the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction. It was also presented to the Management Committee. The attendees to this consultation are the regional directors nationwide. There was also a consultation made at the level of Executive Committee. It was presented to the Executive Committee. The forefront was the Secretary of the Department, Undersecretaries, and Assistant Secretaries. As a result of the consultation, all relevant suggestions and clarifications were incorporated into the policy and templates with the belief that it was created with the best interests of the teachers in mind. At this point, I will demonstrate how the template is filled out. Please allow me to point out some important reminders. Failing to plan is planning to fail. A well-lesson planned is a lesson half done. May I invite your attention to the flexibility clause found in page 12 of the policy, which states that flexibility is allowed in the delivery of the DLL procedures. Teachers do not need to go through all 10 parts in every lesson. Teachers need to ensure that the procedures of the lesson lead to the achievement of the stated objectives. Sa pagkakataong ito, ako ay gagawa ng DLL gamit ang asignaturang ESP, Edukasyon sa Pagpapakatao 6. Aking isinaalang-alang ang oras sapagkat ang ESP 6 ay meron lamang 30 minuto bawat araw. Maaaring ihanda ang DLL ng isang araw o sa loob ng isang linggo. Narito ang isang halimbawa ng template na aking gagamitin sa aralin ng ESP. Makikita dito sa ating layunin na meron tayong pamantayang pangnilalaman, pamantayang pagganap, at mga kasanayan sa pagkatuto. Sa pamantayang pagganap at pamantayang pangnilalaman, ang lahat ng ito ay makikita sa inyong curriculum guide. Sa pagkakataong ito sa ESP 6, ang mga kasanayang pagkatuto ay tumatagal ng isang markahan. Sa aralin isa na may titulong Mahirap Man ang Gawain ay Kakayanin Ko, ito ay mayroong 3 layunin. Ngunit, pinili ko lamang isang layunin upang ituro ito sa isang araw, sa Lunes lamang. Gamit ang layuning ito, bubuuin ko ang DLL para sa ESP 6. Para sa sanggunian, sa mga pahina ng Gabay na Guro, kinopya ko lamang sa pahina 1 and 2 na kung saan nagko-cover ang lesson tungkol sa aralin isa. Para sa pahina ng kagamitang pang-mag-aaral, kinopya ko lamang ito sa pahina 3 hanggang 9. Maaari ring gamitin ang ilang mga bahagi nito. Maaaring gumamit ng ilang textbook na meron tayo sa ating paaralan. Maaari rin tayong magkaroon o magdagdag ng mga karagdagang kagamitan mula sa portal ng Learning Resources o yung tinatawag nating LRMDS. Maaari rin tayong gumawa ng sarili nating mga kagamitang panturo na available sa inyong mga paaralan. Sa pagbabalik ng aking layunin, na kung saan sinasabing mailahad ang pasya na nakabubuti sa nakararami, lililangin ko ang layuning ito sa pamamagitan ng paggamit ng learning materials at teacher's manual or teacher's guide. Para sa pamamaraan, sa A and B na kung saan nandito ang pagbabalik-aral at paghahabi ng layunin, sinulat ko lamang ang talakayin sa mag-aaral ang pahina 2 and 3 ng learning materials. Kung ano man ang laman ng sa pahina ng 2 and 3, doon ang guro ay magtatalakay gamit ang learning materials. Pagkatapos nun, ang letter C ay hindi ko magagamit sa pagkakataong ito. Kung babalikan natin ang flexibility clause, sinasabi doon na hindi kailangang lagyan ang bawat bahagi. So nakita ko bilang guro na mas kailangan ko ang pagtalakay ng bagong konsepto at paglalahad ng bagong kasanayan. Isinulat ko lamang na magbigay ng pamprosesong tanong bilang tugon sa ihanda natin sa pahina 4 ng LM. Ang ihanda natin ay isang bahagi sa learning materials. Napakahalaga na ang guro ay makita niya kung gaano tatagal ang inilalagay niya sa DLL. Inuulit ko, inilalag lamang ito. Ilalagay lamang ang impormasyon na makikita rin sa LMs at TG. Hindi ikinakailangan ilagay lahat o kopyahin kung anong meron sa LM at TG. Ang halimbawang pinakita ko ay pang-isahang araw lamang. Pero maaari nating ihanda ang ating DLL sa paggamit ng 2 araw o higit pa. Ito ang halimbawa. Kung babalikan natin ang ating layunin, mailahad ang pasya na nakabubuti sa nakararami, babalikan natin na 3 layunin ang nakaatang para sa aralin isa. So, iminanage ko na tigta-3 araw ko itong i-discuss o tatalakayin. Sapagkat natalakay ko na ng isa para sa Lunes, tatalakayin ko naman ito sa araw ng Martes at Miyerkules gamit pa rin ang parehong layunin. Sa pagkakataong ito, palalalimin ko ang talakayan. Paano ko to palalalimin? Gamit pa rin ang learning materials ng ating mga mag-aaral. Magkakaroon na ngayon ako ng pagbabalik tanaw. Bakit? Sapagkat nagkaroon na ako ng talakayan kahapon. So, bilang tugon dyan, magkakaroon ng balik tanaw sa nakaraang talakayan. Paano ko ito palalalimin? Babalik uli ako sa konsepto na kung saan ang ilalagay ko lamang sa DLL ay ipabasa ang matuto sa iba sa pahina 5-6 ng LM. Para sa paglinang ng kabihasaan tungo sa formative assessment, isinulat ko sa aking DLL ang pagpapalalim ng konsepto gamit ang mga tanong sa pahina 6 ng LM. Maaari rin tayong gumamit o gumawa ng ibang mga pamprosesong tanong upang mapalalim pa ang talakayan sa aralin isa. Narito na ako sa bahagi ng pagninilay. Maraming katanungan ang natatanggap ng aming kagawaran kung paano sasagutan o paano i-fill out ang pagninilay. Lagi po nating tatandaan ang pagninilay ay makakatulong sa atin bilang guro. Ito ang mag-aangat ng antas ng ating pagtuturo sa araw-araw. Sa pagninilay, meron tayong 7 bahagi na maaaring gamitin upang mapataas ang ating antas ng pagtuturo. Inuulit ko, hindi kailangan lahat sagutan siya. Maaari lamang pumili ang guro kung saan makakatulong ito sa kanyang pagninilay. Halimbawa, kung ang estratehiya niyang nagamit sa araw na yon ay epektibo, maaari niya itong isulat kung anong pagninilay ang napapaloob dito. Ang pagninilay ay hindi kinakailangang araw-araw. Ito ay kumporme sa pangangailangan ng guro. Maaaring gawin ng pagninilay kada matatapos ang isang buong aralin, isang buong module, isang buong lesson. Inuulit ko, ito ay para sa refleksyon ng pagpapataas ng antas ng pagtuturo ng guro. Nais kong hikayatin ang bawat punong guro, mga supervisor, na sundin ang pulisiyang ito. Tandaan, ang DLL ay naglalayo na mapagaan ang gawain ng guro. Binibigyan diin ng ating kagawaran na tayo ay maging kaakibat sa pagtulong at paglinang sa pagiging malikhain ng guro sa paghahanda ng DLL. The department would like to reiterate as well that the preparation of DLP and DLL shall be part of the performance assessment of those who are in Teacher 1 to 3 and Master Teacher 1 to 4 positions through the RPMS. Compliance with DLP and DLL preparation shall be monitored following the RPMS cycle. It is important to emphasize at this point that then newly appointed Secretary, Yunor Magtolis Briones, issued an official statement on the DLL policy following several criticisms received by the department on the said policy. Excerpts of which is as follows. The DepEd understands that part of the concerns of teachers regarding the DLL is its new format. In this regard, the DepEd wishes to assure teachers and the public that the new DLL format was created with the best interests of teachers in mind. The new DLL format is simply meant as a planning tool for teachers in terms of budgeting time and choosing the most appropriate activities and assessment strategies to ensure that the learners meet the competencies targeted in each lesson. It is meant as a tool to help teachers deliver lessons more effectively each time they step in front of their class. We hope that this presentation will give the teachers, school heads, and the field officials a different perspective in DLL. This policy was formulated for teachers to facilitate teaching, which will eventually translate to improved learning outcomes. For more queries and clarification, kindly email us at bld.tld@deped.gov.ph.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for listening. And that is all about the entire scenario of the lesson planning, the DLL and the DLP. And patuloy po tayo and some of the implications to teaching. Of course, with the characteristics of learners in mind, your teaching will be more effective if you do the following. Ano po iyon? Of course, you have to present the subject as a way of finding out rather than as a body of facts to be memorized. Next, we have to emphasize learning by doing, as what I've said, that it must be a learner-centered. Encourage interaction among learners. And adopt science experiences for learners' developmental levels, not only science, but all the subjects. Use the variety of approaches in teaching the science and other subjects, and to ensure that the optimum learning takes place in the classroom, the following tips may be useful also. Decide whether the students will work individually or in a group ahead of time, using those suggested approaches I made mention a while ago about the 4A's and explicit instruction. Then, when the students are working in group, make certain that no member is excluded in the activity. Yes, that's true, regardless of their abilities. So you have to respect also. Then, rotate responsibility so that each member of the group has equal opportunity. So, tama yon, no? So we see to it that si student A ay forever siya maging leader. Dapat ang kasunod naman si student B, student C, at ganun po yan. Then, circulate among the groups as they work and discuss, listen to the students' contributions, and assess their thinking skills as well as their ability to work cooperatively. Kaya nga, kinakailangan si teacher talaga ay nag-check, no, sa groupings, no, to make sure that there is what we call collaboration and cooperation. Then the other one is to require the students to keep their noise to a minimum as they work. An absolute silence, on the other hand, will hamper also the learning. Okay, so what about the management tips in the class? Now let's continue. After giving instructions, watch to see the students begin their work. If they appear not to understand what is expected for them, then ask all the students to stop working so you maybe give additional instructions to clarify things. Then, if the instructions are somewhat complex, give them in a short segments. Write the steps on the board or on a transparency so that can refer them as they work. Then, always give time for questions from the students. Another one, be prepared and provide additional activity for those who finish early to keep them occupied, especially for those who are fast learners. Dapat you have enough activity. Then, plan ahead for each lesson to have the materials in hand and ready for distribution when needed. Okay, part ng ating reflections. So, what insight have you gained from this session or from this activity? So, any answers? Then, what will you do if differently this time will the learnings that you acquired from this session? Kaya sabi kanina ni Sir Nani that if you fail the plan, you plan to fail. When you fail the plan, it is almost as if you plan to fail. No one ever succeed accidentally. Success is not the result of planning and executing the plan. Therefore, you are eventually fail. If you have the best strategy and you are using the best technology, then without the existence of planning, our main objectives in teaching, which is learning, would not take place. Okay, so I want you to also to always walk through life as if you have something new to learn, and you will, according to Vernon Howard. And before I end, I would like to share with you the parable of the coffee beans. There was once an intelligent teacher who experimented the boiling water. She put 3 pots of water over the fire. In the first pot, she put some carrots. And the second pot, she put some eggs. And the third pot, she put some coffee beans that had been grounded into coffee powder. And she boiled all the 3 pots for 15 minutes. Afterwards, she took out what she had put into the pot of boiling water. The carrots, which were hard, become soft. The egg, which were soft inside, become hard. And the coffee powder disappeared. But the water had a color and a wonderful smell of coffee. Then she thought of her life as a teacher. Life of a teacher is not always easy. Life of a teacher is not always comfortable. Oftentimes, life of a teacher is trying and difficult. Things don't happen as we wish. People don't treat us as we hope. We work very hard, but get few results. The boiling water is like the problems in our life as a teacher. We can be like the carrots. We go in tough and strong. We come out soft and weak. We get very tired. We lose hope. We give up. And there's no more fighting spirit. We can be like the eggs. We start with a soft and sensitive heart. We end up a very hard and unfeeling inside. We hate our job. We don't like our students. We become hard-hearted. And there's no warm feelings, only bitterness. We can be like the coffee beans. The water does not change the coffee powder. The coffee powder changes the water. The water has become different because of the coffee powder. You can see it, you can smell it, you can taste it. The hotter the water, the better the taste. If we can be like the coffee beans, we can make something good from the difficulties we face at school. We have knowledge, we have the skills, and we have the abilities. We have the potentials for changing the lives of our students for the better. We can make our school a better place for work. To succeed, we must try and try again. We must believe in what we are doing. We must not give up. We must be patient. We must keep pushing. The problems and difficulties at school give us the chance to become stronger and tougher and better teachers. What are we like when things do not go well at school? Are we like the carrots? Or the eggs? Or the coffee beans? Be like the coffee beans. Change the people around you at school. Influence them with your good work. Even if in return they will harbor ill feelings against you. Even if they will rock you out of your wits. And after all, in the final judgment, it is between you and good anyway. Thank you and God bless you all. Maraming salamat.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much, Sir Greg. Thank you so much for availing your time today, and RMMC is always grateful for you. And sa mga classmates and educators ko dyan na nasa comment in YouTube, if meron pa, feel free to ask, and maybe our coordinators will answer that by this time. Alam natin na marami na tayong dinagdagan pa ni Sir Greg. We are very much thankful for that. Indeed, ngayon alam na natin kung paano
Ganito na ako ha.
Informative and relevant sessions. I hope na nakinig ko tayo because as teacher,
And sorry. So again, to give our appreciation to Sir Greg. Sir, please do accept this e-certificate. And by that, we request Ma'am April Tungpua, LPT, to read the content of the certificate.
Ramon Magsaysay Memorial College's College of Teacher Education Office. Certificate of Appreciation is awarded to Dr. Gregorio O. Wallace for rendering his time, effort, and passion in sharing his expertise as a resource speaker for the lesson planning seminar with the theme Materializing Impactful Learning Outcomes, a Vision of Lesson Planning. Given this 26th day of November 2021 at Ramon Magsaysay Memorial College's General Santos City, Philippines. Signed by Dr. Annalisa T. Amada, the Dean of College of Teacher Education.
Ayan, and now we are down to our last part of the program. To round up, let's hear from Ma'am Lani Nalaunan, LPT.
Good day and magandang RMMC. On behalf of all the field study instructors, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to our well-respected and eligible resource speaker, Dr. Gregorio O. Ruales, for sharing his knowledge and expertise with us about lesson planning. I know that everyone, especially the field study students, had a fruitful insight and listened attentively to speakers. May they be able to apply what they have learned today as they gradually achieve what they have dreamed of, which is to become a teacher. I would also like to thank our college dean, Dr. Annalisa T. Amada, and to all my fellow field study instructors for their effort and for making this webinar possible. To end this, let me share a quote by Otis Kriegel. A good lesson plan is a living document. It is not set in stone, but rather, it is a guide that keeps you, the classroom practitioner, engage and think about what you are teaching. Once again, thank you for attending today's webinar and have a pleasant day ahead.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And once again, this is your host. I am Leo G. De Blas, a DPN student of RMMC. Nagsasabing dito sa RMMC, at home ka dito.